Hey everyone, Antonio Lojudice here from StayHungryBeFoolish.com, and today I have the great pleasure of speaking to Eliana Tardio. Eliana is the mom of two children, both with Down syndrome. She's a public relations professional, a family resource specialist, a published author, as well as a well-known international bilingual blogger, writing in English and Spanish to raise awareness about Down syndrome, and acting as an advocate on behalf of parents with special needs. Eliana, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to me to be here today.
Thank you. So, to get started, if we can go back, I believe maybe about 9 years, you arrived in the United States. You moved there from Latin America. If you can tell us maybe a little bit about what made you take the decision and maybe some of the challenges that you faced from moving to a new country and a new language.
Well, my story started, I guess the day I knew that I learned that my child was coming with Down syndrome. I was like around 5 months pregnant. That day I went to see the doctor, and he told me, that there was like a high probability that he will be born with Down syndrome. So it was shocking, and it was really, really hard to believe. I think no one ever is like prepared for that news, So for me, it was like, I cannot believe this is happening to me, and I'm sure this is not going to happen. I'm sure this is a mistake. And that was actually how I handled, the news for a couple of months. So when I was like 8 months pregnant, one day I woke up and I thought, oh my God, maybe it is true. Maybe this child is gonna be born with Down syndrome. And I have been, like trying to hide my feelings, and I didn't want to tell anyone because I didn't want to accept my reality. So my ex-husband, his family was here already. They were already American citizens. So that day I remember that my mother-in-law went to visit to Bolivia, and I told her, and she said, you know what, you should come with us. And if the child is fine, if he doesn't have Down syndrome, it's going to be okay. You can come back to Bolivia. But if he's born with Down syndrome, this is going to be like a great opportunity for him for having services, education, and a future, because in my country, we didn't have that at the time. And I think we probably still don't have the things that they do have here in the United States.
Oh, yeah. So you actually spoke about when you had your first child, your son, Emir, right? You were faced with the anxiety of both becoming a parent, and then you got the news that he had Down syndrome. You spoke a little bit about your initial reaction to the news. Eliana, can you talk about a little bit how you felt and maybe how you acknowledged your feelings and your fear, because you obviously turned them into courage?
Yeah. Well, when he was born, I'm not gonna lie, it was, like a surprise to see the Down syndrome, because he was born, and I can really, remember that I look at him and I recognize the Down syndrome in his eyes. So it was, a shock, really, because this is my child. This is the child I have been expecting, but at the same time, he doesn't look as the child that I dream of, So it is hard to say that, but I think every parent crossed the same situation. So it was hard. It was, hard in all senses, because he was really weak when he was born. He had to stay at the hospital. And it was not only, as you said, having a child, it was having my first child. It was also, being in a different country. It was talking in a new language too, So there was a lot involved. And at that time also, I came to Naples, Florida. And at that time, there wasn't much people who spoke Spanish. So for me, it was, like so many challenges at the same time, because I was driving with this child, in a new country, going to Miami like once a week for him to receive treatments and all that, driving in a different country, speaking a different language. So it was a lot, but at the same time, I guess, since the day he was born, he looked at me and he gave me all the strength and all the things I knew I needed actually for keep going for him, because that's love, you know.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? 2 years later, I believe it was roughly about 2 years later when you gave birth to your second child, and this time it was your daughter, beautiful daughter, Aileen. And again, Eliana, you were given the news that she as well would be born with Down syndrome. How did you feel at this time?
And this time everything was different, because I guess I already knew, you know, how important a child really is, because before having a child, you know that a child is like the most important thing in the world. You have listened to your friends, you know, talking about their children, and sometimes you feel like these people gets crazy when they have kids, because all their priorities change. They don't want to be your friends anymore. They are so busy. So after having the child, I was like, oh my God, having a child is the most amazing experience in the world. Now I can understand all these friends, you know. So my daughter was planned, you know. In her case, we decided to have this second child. And I remember, you know, that the day that I talked to my ex-husband, I told him, well, I think we are ready to have another child, and Emir needs a brother or a sister who can actually, you know, take care of him, because he has this disability, he's gonna grow, and he needs a sibling. So he said, yes, let's try it. And I remember that day, you know, I pray and I say, God send me like the perfect sister or brother. Actually, I said sister. So I said, you know, like, I want a daughter. I want her to look a lot like me. I don't know why I did that, but and I want her to be perfect for him and perfect for us. And I remember when I say those words, I was like ready to say, please don't send her with Down syndrome. And I couldn't, you know. I said, you know what? If you want to send her with Down syndrome and that's your will, that's fine. I just want the perfect child for him and for me and for my family. So I didn't know that she was coming with Down syndrome. I didn't want to do the test. I didn't know anything. She was like the most perfect child in the world, the most perfect pregnancy. I remember that I used to give, you know, like a speech to Latinos families on how to eat well, because everything was perfect, you know. So when she was born, I remember when I was ready to have her, the nurse asked me, and what's going to happen if she's born with Down syndrome? And it was, you know, like, wow, I really didn't think about that before, you know. I knew there was, you know, like a probability, but it wasn't on my mind till that second. So she said, what should you want me to do if she's born with Down syndrome? And I told her, yes, tell me congratulations. And she said, okay. And so when she was born, actually she was born, you know, and I look at her and I was like, she has Down syndrome. And one of the things that I remember, you know, that can really, you know, those marks in your life is that I took her hand and I look at her finger and I saw her finger, you know, it was exactly the same finger that my son has. And that's a genetic, you know, sign of the Down syndrome, because they share, you know, a chromosome. So I look at her finger and I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe she also has Down syndrome. And then the nurse told me, congratulations, honey. And she said, she has Down syndrome, but you're gonna be fine. So yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And you know what? You're so proud of your children's accomplishments. I mean, you share them constantly on your blogs and with everyone in hopes of motivating and inspiring parents to help them understand that living with disabilities is just as having different abilities. If you can maybe talk a little bit about that, Eliana, like living with disabilities is just as different as having abilities.
Exactly. What I have learned from my kids, you know, and I'm really grateful to them, is that actually they have opened my eyes, you know, to a different world. And that's what I always tell to new families, to new parents, you know, now you are scared, now you are disappointed, you don't know where to go, what to do. But there's a point in life, you know, that we don't know where we are going to go without them, or what we would be without them. Actually, that's how I feel about them. And every day, is like learning something new from them, because you look at them, and they have to try sometimes like 1,000 times things that other kids can do the first time. But they are determined, and they have that motivation in their hearts that is amazing, because they keep trying, and they don't give up, and they feel so happy when finally they get the stuff done, that is like really rewarding for them and for everybody who's around them, because people really can feel part of their achievements. And that's how I feel, that, and that's something that I have taken to my own life, that before them I used to be, the typical person that will get, like really impatient about stuff, that will, be like disappointed or complaining about the stuff, that doesn't really matter in life. And now I'm the kind of person that is like really grateful about the small things, that they show me every day. So actually, I am very proud of them. And when I look at them, I feel like you came to me because I'm supposed to teach you something, but actually you are the ones who are teaching me every day.
Oh, that's beautiful. And you also, I remember reading an article, Eliana, where you wrote about a fine line between stimulating a child with special needs and overparenting.
Yes.
And it's funny because after reading it, I remembered about of some conversations amongst parents around me, and I thought that this doesn't only happen with parents with children with special needs. So if you can maybe share and talk about what the difference is between stimulating a child and overparenting.
Well, people sometimes they feel that talking about stimulation and all that is only for kids with special needs. Actually, that's a natural part of life when you are a parent. Every second you are stimulating your child, and you have to be, realistic about, the impact that every second have in the life of your children. Some people don't realize that sometimes. So that's a stimulation, to talk to him, to smile to him, how you react when he is misbehaving, what do you expect from that child is also stimulation, because you are creating that child, and he eats from you, actually, he eats your feelings. He's a part of you. So people don't realize that. But the problem is that sometimes when we start, like over parenting, is when we get sometimes obsessed about the things that we consider are the most important for that child, and we start like planning his life. So we want that child to be this, so we work so hard for him to do that, because we feel that's the thing that he really needs to do to be happy. And we forget about the child. We forget about the individual, It happens a lot with parents of kids with special needs, because sometimes, it goes to therapists that sometimes we want like 1,000 therapies a week, because we feel that we are going to fix that child.
Wow.
That child is not broken, That child is perfect the way he is. And what we have to do, is to really discover our child, try to empower his own abilities and celebrate what that child is, because you never know, probably that child is too different from you. Probably that child is going to be like you, but it's going to take time. And I guess the most important is to take one day a day, and celebrate the life of your child.
Yeah, and just maybe just be there to let them develop and be their own person, instead of the person that we expect them to be or want them to be.
Right.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, at the beginning I mentioned how you're a well-known blogger, and you've written 2 books, at least that I know of, both entitled with the name of each one of your children, Amir and Aileen. And you're a family resource specialist. And I remember reading that when you had first arrived in the United States, you had a few odd jobs. I mean, I think you were a waitress, a maid, and even sold donuts for a while. And I remember seeing that what got me is that you spoke about how your dream was to become a writer. And I mean, this didn't happen overnight for you. And I can't tell you how many times, Eliana, I heard people say, I can't start doing so and so now. I have kids. I'm too busy with the kids. You're a mom with two children with special needs. How did you manage to do all this and still raise those two kids?
And I think it applies to the previous question to, when we find what we really want to do, when we enjoy what we are and we actually find who we are, is when we can do so many things at the same time and do them right. And people look at your life sometimes from the outside and they see all the success, like, wow, look what she's doing, look what she got. But there's a lot of work involved, actually, and I can tell that from the beginning when I came here, I always had that idea clear in my mind that I'm gonna do what I have to do to survive, to grow, but I'm gonna pursue my dream. So when I was like working as a waitress, I was in my mind, planning on what my next article will be, When I was like selling donuts, I was thinking, I know that in 5 years I'm going to be doing, a public speech, and I'm going to be touching the lives of many others who need from me. So I guess, that's the most important. When you have something clear in your mind, eventually you're going to get there. And you have to take every step, because every step is important, and every step has like an impact in you and in the way you are and in the things you can give to others. And that's how I feel about that. I can really tell people, what, I was in your position like 9 years ago. I didn't know how to speak English. I didn't know how to write in English. I didn't have this or that. And look where I am now. And it didn't happen, in 2 days or 3 days. It took me a long time, It took me days and nights, sometimes to not to sleep, but at the next day be happy and be full of energy, because I was, trying to look my life from the positive side and say, I'm doing it. This is gonna be great for me, and I'm going where I wanna be. And at the end, I guess we are never there because we keep looking for more stuff, right?
Exactly.
But I think that's what keeps us, going and motivated and celebrating life every day.
And actually, don't you find, Eliana, that in a way, by doing that, you're also giving a lot more to your children, because you're setting an example, right? Because I've heard many people say that sometimes they have to sacrifice things for themselves for their children, but in the end, I find that you can still raise the children and still pursuing what you like, the way you just explained it. You're actually setting an example for them.
Yeah, and I guess the most important is that you need to know what do you want and where you are going, because when you have that stuff clear, things happen the way you want them to happen. So I have been always very clear about my priorities. There has been things, that I cannot do because I'm not going to put my kids in second place, for my personal dreams. But there's always a way, that works for us. So I'm always open to those ways. And I have that very clear, I can do whatever I need to do, but my kids need to be involved. And it has been awesome, because I can also tell you that sometimes I have been offered, great positions doing marketing or PR, but I have to say no, because, in that case, I will be getting far from my priority, that is to keep doing awareness for my kids, for, the kids that are like them and the families, that are crossing all these situations. And this is what really keeps me going and motivated, so I don't want to lose that.
That's amazing. And if you can talk maybe just a little bit about, because you mentioned your ex-husband, so you're divorced now and a single mom. Was it difficult for you, Eliana, to accept that your marriage wasn't working out? Like, did you ever feel that maybe you should have like stuck with it because of the kids? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, yeah, I guess, that's true. There was a point in my life, that I totally depend on my ex-husband. He's a good father for their kids, but there was a point that our relationship wasn't working anymore, and I was scared. I was scared to start by myself. I didn't know how to do simple or basic stuff by myself because I was used to have someone, full time, helping me with the kids, someone I can, say, okay, now maybe I can take a nap and someone is gonna take care of the kids. But from the other side, I know that I needed to be, not by myself, that I needed to be happy, you know. And being happy for me means, to do the things that I'm meant to be, and to do, and pursuing my dreams is very important. And I think that's the main thing with that, that I always knew where I was going, and sometimes it's hard. And I guess everybody gets married for, with the feeling that they are gonna be married forever. It doesn't happen, and you have to take it easy, and keep going and try to do your best. And that's what we do now. We try to be good parents, even we are not a couple anymore.
So if you can maybe share with us, because I know many of us, and including myself, sometimes we tend to victimize ourselves for current situations or when we're faced with unexpected life events. And I mean, having spoken to you today, Eliana, it's clear that life has given you quite of these situations. From all your experience, what would you say maybe to people that could help them to step outside of that victim mindset and move towards growing for themselves?
I always think about my life. When I was 15 years old, my mom passed away with cancer. I think that was my experience in life when I was, feeling like a victim of the situation. And I feel that I made so many mistakes in my life because I decided to be in that position, that I'm the poor one who her mom passed away, and I'm like allowed to make mistakes and all that. And I was like really young too. But then when my kids were born, and with the situation of having two kids with special needs, everything was different because I started thinking, okay, I'm the only one who can make a difference. I'm the only one who can be the mother of these kids. And I have to do all that I have to do, and I have to find, a reason for this. And as we always do, we always ask, why me? And I think the question will be, why not me? If I'm someone else in this world and I can do something from this, and helping others is always motivational. Sharing your story, your words is always very motivational to others. Being a blogger, it has been the most amazing thing in my life, because sometimes you write something and there are like thousands and thousands of people reading at your article, and you get this email, from a family that tells you, what, after reading your words, now I feel that there is hope. Now I can look at life in a different way. And it's the same, when a parent, sends you an email telling them, they told me that my child is coming with Down syndrome. I want to abort. And you reply to them and you tell them, these are my kids, this is my blog, this is what they do, this is how I feel. And after that, it's like saving a life, actually, because then you get, that people to call you or send you another email telling you, I decide to keep my baby, and this is my baby. So those are the things that I can really tell people, that are going to make a real change and a real impact in their lives. And you have to pursue that feeling, because sometimes it looks like you are giving a lot, but actually you are getting much more, from giving your voice and your words.
That's amazing, Eliana. And if just to end off, I know you're busy, but I would want to ask you maybe just one final question before I let you go, is what would you say now at this stage in your life? What would be the most important thing for you in life?
The most important thing for me, are my kids. my small family. The most important thing is to come home every day and see them smiling, is to see them happy, to look at them and see them proud of who they are. Is sometimes to walk at the grocery store and see people approaching to them and telling them, "Hi, Amir. Hi, Ayelen. I saw your post yesterday, so you're doing this or that." Is that magic of creating the world that they deserve, and feeling part of that is like amazing.
You know what, Ileana? You are such a special and warm person. I mean, look at you. You speak so much from the heart, and we're seeing you speak, and we can see that it's so much from the heart,
I'm all heart.
all heart. And that was the thing that actually got me to approach you, because just in your words we can feel everything that you share with the world, and that your mind is really about the other person and getting out there. And I think that you're making such a huge difference in people's lives. I see the comments that they send to you, and it's just amazing. And I mean, I don't have children, let alone children with special needs, but you've touched me in many ways, because we all have difficulties in our lives, and you're just a big role model for all of us to just step ahead and see them as ways of growing and helping others. So I thank you so much, from really from the bottom of my heart, for being here and sharing your story with me.
Thank you, Antonia. Thank you. It's my pleasure, and thank you so much for letting me, share my experience. And I have my really bad times too, and sometimes I feel like life is so hard. We all cross those times too, but I guess the most important is to keep looking, at the future with hope. And there's always another day, a better day. There's always a tomorrow.
Always.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Eliana.
Thanks.